Well, I started playing just YMCA volleyball, and slowly I had friends who played club and loved it, so I was convinced to play club. And I started playing beach in high school or in 8th grade, I think, with Anna Goss. And I went to high school at Desert Vista. And what else? What am I missing here? I went to LMU. I committed late my senior year. Went to LMU for 5 years, played indoor for 4 years, and beach for also 4 years.
What? You said you were late to commit. Why were you late to commit?
I think most people are committing like as sophomores and even juniors, and I committed, I think, even late in my senior year. I always wanted to go to school in California, and it wasn't the ideal fit, my scholarship offers, so I was kind of holding off, and I was very lucky and blessed that an opportunity came up at LMU, and it was, an awesome experience. I had great coaches, and I got to be on the beach, coast the beach so I could play, even though beach wasn't a NCAA sport at the time. But my sophomore year, we got a beach program, which was my first year that it was a sport for college.
All right. Okay, so you're at so you go to LMU, and then tell me about the first month or so with Tom Black.
Yeah, I went to LMU. I didn't know Tom super well. I just heard it was his very first year. And the girls who were there previously had him for the spring semester, and they just talked about how awesome he was and coaching, and he was changing a lot of things. And I was like, oh, cool, whatever, thinking, yeah, I don't need to change anything. Got to LMU, and just my mind was blown about how many things I can be upgrading and changing and making better. And he was really good with the mental game, both indoor and on the beach. But just changing all techniques to make it super simple, and definitely was eye-opening. And that first year it's definitely really challenging to make changes, especially playing. Throughout high school and middle school, it's hard to make changes that you've been doing for so long. But he was awesome with. I didn't realize it at the time, but like giving feedback and helping us change, and over the course of 5 years, I definitely have grown to be a completely different player than when I first came in, so that was pretty cool.
Weren't you recruited as an outside hitter?
Yes, so I was recruited as an outside. Even trained my freshman year as an outside, but we had 2 outsides that did really well, and I definitely wasn't like a power hitter, where I think the college game, D1, is a lot of power. And I was playing DS, and I was doing really well, and I knew I wasn't going to get too much time as an outside, so talked to Tom and our coaches about switching to libero. So my sophomore year, I started training with the liberos and got to play as libero starting my sophomore year. So that was a good change for me. It was nice to play all the way around, and yeah.
And so didn't you win a few awards as a libero?
I guess so. What was I? WCC Defensive Player of the Year? Twice, maybe? I don't know. Yeah.
And I think it was after your senior year, you went up, and I want to say it was December, January, you went to the USAV training block for a couple of months, I think, or maybe it was just a month, I'm not sure. Tell me about that experience, because you're dealing with Tom, who's the assistant coach, and Karch, and all those amazing athletes and girls that are also just trying to get a peak. So tell me about that.
Yeah, that was an awesome experience to do that winter training block with a lot of the top players, a lot of top college players, and a couple girls from the national team were there who weren't playing overseas at the time, so it was cool to see them training and working out. But it was kind of a time. It was my senior year, and I was kind of deciding, like, do I want to play indoor professionally? I'm not quite sure. I really love beach, and I kind of wanted to go that route, so I tried it out. We had another girl on our team who did it with me, so it was nice to carpool together. But being in a gym with great coaches and, Karch used to be a great player, was a cool experience. It wasn't super different because Tom Black trains the same way as they train in USA. I'd just say the level was a lot higher, and there's a lot more athletes who were like striving to be like the top, like the best of the best. So that was a really cool change to see. But and I'd say I don't know if really the pressure was greater, but I felt like there was more pressure to do well because I was with all these top players. So it was really neat to be there.
And so Karch is big about talking about growth mindset in his gym and trying to, focus more on the process. But here you are in this month or 5 weeks or whatever it was, and you're trying to impress. And so did you get that vibe in that training block or no?
Yeah. I think everyone was trying to make changes. And, Karch and everyone USA is all about getting better. We did film with them. I was definitely at an advantage because I had trained the same way and like the techniques were all the same, so it wasn't huge like technique changes for me. I didn't like that as the libero internationally you're not allowed to serve, so that kind of steered me away from going the indoor route because I really love serving. I like to take control of the game, and when I was there I was just getting hammered with balls. And I would just stand back there, and they just serve the crap out of the ball, and I'd just be stinking balls all the time. So it kind of steered me away. But it was really cool atmosphere to be a part of for, I think it was like 8 weeks.
Do you still talk to any of those players?
I do, yeah. A few of them, one I've become pretty good friends with. So, yeah, it's awesome.
So after that, you're playing beach at LMU, and you got that 5th year. And I believe that was the year that another Arizona product who Tom had just recruited, you guys finally got to play together.
Yeah, Sarah Sponsel. She's a stud. That was cool. It was her freshman year. It was my 5th year. I was like, I think going into that year, I was so resistant. I was like, I don't want to play with Sarah. I don't want to block. Because we ended up split blocking. We did play together. She was awesome. She was like, I'll full-time block. And I was like, okay, you do that. Tom was like, no, you guys are split blocking. But that was awesome. She's a great player. She's super competitive. I was supposed to be, I'm like the older one, more experienced. I was getting served every ball just because she's hammering balls. And it was definitely a wake-up call for me, and it helped me grow, I think, mentally. And really, I think that last year helped me prepare for my professional career the most. Just mentally being able to get every single serve-receive ball, and we did pretty well. We got to the national championship. So yeah, that was an awesome year.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's take this. Now you've decided to try your hand at pro beach volleyball. There's a lot of ways to go, a lot of entities, AVP, MPL, all those kind of things. So tell me, like, what was your decision-making process, and had you already picked a partner out, and how did it work?
Yeah, right after college season, there was 2 weeks before the first AVP event, and I played with Kelly Larson. She played at Pepperdine. We played the summer before. We played in a couple qualifiers, and we also played in the U23 World Championships in Poland together, where it was through the USA High Performance Pipeline. They paired us together, and we went and competed. And I really loved playing with her, and she's an awesome person. So I was like, I reached out to her. I was like, we should play in this tournament, and we decided let's go play in New Orleans. We didn't qualify that first tournament, which was kind of a bummer, but we ended up that year obviously qualifying, and we won an AVP tournament, which at the time we were the youngest team to win an AVP tournament. So that was really awesome. I love playing with Kelly. We're still playing together. It's been 3 years, so we're going into our 4th year playing together.
So this was 2015.
Yes.
And the tournament you won was in Cincinnati.
Yep.
So then you go into 2016 and then last year and stuff. So the process to get to Tokyo? As far as the qualifying process, how it works, I think a lot of people are really confused about the 2-star, 3-star, all that kind of stuff, how the FIVB is involved, what you get or how you get things from USA Volleyball, USA Beach. So can you go through that with us?
Yeah, I know. So the Olympic qualification, like the process, I think they're potentially rewriting or they may alter for Tokyo. So that's still in the works. But obviously you have to be one of the top 2 teams in the U.S. For international points, which you don't get through playing AVPs. You have to play in the FIVB World Tour. And they just changed it this year to they have 1 through 5-star events. 5 and 4 stars are like the most money, the most points. Like the top players in the world are playing in these. And then 1, 2, and 3 stars are like lower level, not as many points, not as much money. I think they were thinking just from more of a developmental standpoint, having these lower star tournaments to get teams that don't have very many points into tournaments and playing more. This year they canceled a lot of the 4 and 5 stars, so a lot of the top players were playing in 3 stars, and it was definitely tough to even get into these. So we weren't planning on playing 1 and 2 stars. We thought they were kind of waste of money, and you're not making any money. And USA only funds. They give you a travel stipend if you play in a 3, 4, or 5-star event, and you have to finish 17th or better. So pretty much you're making out a pool play, if there's pool play. A lot of times it's been single elimination. So there's 1 and 2-star events. You're not getting funded. You have to pay for it on your own. So once they canceled the top events, we were kind of forced to play in these 1 and 2-star events because we're still trying to get our foot in the door with points. So we played in 3. We played in a 2-star in China, 1-star in Korea. We won gold in both of those. And then we just played in the Netherlands, and we got bronze there. And we're going to Sydney, Australia to play in a 2-star next week. So yeah, from what I heard, they're adding more 4 and 5-star events next year. So that'll be great for the sport and great for the top players. Hopefully we can make some more money that way and get funded through USA.
Okay, the points, are they accrued throughout the quad, or are they accrued the actual year before the Olympics?
So right now, like the points you have, the last 8 events, your best 6 finishes, and they expire every year, so every 365 days. But the Olympic qualification period, I think it's about a year and a half, but you have to play, I think it's a minimum of 12 events. I'm not even sure which ones they all take, but you have to play in a minimum of 12 events. So leading into Tokyo, there should be a lot more FIVB tournaments. I think last year, it was the World Champs was last year, and then a lot of the tournaments dropped off. But when Olympic qualification period starts, I think there'll be more tournaments for sure.
So this needs my next question, which is money. So if you aren't somebody that's a Kerry Walsh or Phil Dalhouser, or somebody that doesn't have tons and tons of sponsorships and things, you guys literally are, I'm guessing, penny pinching your way across this tour, right?
Yeah, I mean the AVP really helps with that because it doesn't. I mean, we're paying for all our travel here, but we're able to make some good money on the AVP if we do well. That definitely helps. We've had some sponsors that really help, but pretty much, I mean, Kelly and I both work. We train full time, and then after like 1 o'clock when we're done practicing, lifting, conditioning, doing all that stuff, we're coaching. Kelly tutors. I work at a basketball facility with my husband, so just making money here and there when we can, but still like training full time.
And so what's the pressure like thinking when you go to a tournament and you lay out for travel expenses and stuff, you got to think, wow, if we don't finish 17th or better, we get nothing. We're shut out here and it's all out of pocket.
Yeah. I mean, we weren't even able to play in 3-star events this year, so we haven't had the USA stipend. So it hasn't been pressure as far as that this year, but I mean, we're paying a lot of money to go the 1 and 2 stars, and it's the same thing. It's like, it's kind of that pressure, like, if we don't do well, one, we're not making any money if you do well, but we're going to come and we're going to do really well to win these points. So that's really the main goal for us, and I think when our mindset is like we're just going and we're going to go win, like we're really aggressive and we have a good mindset, we're good. If we're kind of thinking about like, oh, we could get this many points, or if we finish here, then we kind of play a little tentative and not as well. So we kind of just try to go over there and we're telling each other we're going to win, and that's why we're here. And I mean, that's been helping us.
You had some other partners, you know, especially when you were first starting. So 2 questions: why Kelly, and then how do you find a great beach partner? Because you know, you and I both know this, that every year there's partners swapping right and left, guys, girls. You know, they're different partners every time. In a lot of cases, every tournament they're playing with somebody different. You and Kelly have been together for 3 years, and obviously are going to see this through. So what is it? How do you pick a great beach partner, and what are you looking for when you pick Kelly?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really lucky I found Kelly and that we've stuck it through. You know, I think there's definitely value sticking with a partner because you go through so many ups and downs, and there's so many opportunities to learn from those. And every time you get a new partner, you're going to go through similar things. So it's nice to stick with someone. But I mean, I think most people don't come out playing with someone and they stay with them for a long time. I think what Kelly and I have is definitely rare. We're good friends off the court and we get along, which is really helpful because we travel a lot. We always joke I spend more time with her than my husband. I'm with her on all the anniversaries, birthdays. That's definitely helpful. I think, especially from the girls' standpoint, to get along outside of the court. I think men, maybe it doesn't matter as much. But she's an awesome person. We play really well together on the court. She's a great blocker, has really good ball control. So she's fun to play with. She's really positive. So yeah, I think we complement each other really well. I get really fiery. People like to call us fire nights because I get really fiery and hyped up, and she likes to kind of play relaxed and smile. So it kind of balances out. It's fun.
So I can imagine one or both of you at times just get really hard on yourself, down on yourself. Are you able to rescue each other from that? And then the flip side would be, do you ever get mad at her, or does she ever get mad at you?
Yeah, I mean, there's always days where we're hard on ourselves. I think more than anything, we both want to get better and do really well. So when we're not, I wouldn't say mad at each other, it's more like we're internalizing and like we're frustrated because we want to get better. And I mean, for me, I can be a little bit of a perfectionist, so when I don't do things right, like every time, it gets frustrating, and I have to remind myself. But I think we've played with each other long enough. We're getting in a groove. I think when we get frustrated, it's more in practice because we're trying to make changes and get better. When it comes to games, there's obviously frustration, but I think when we're forward talking and we're playing aggressive, we're pretty good and letting go of the last play. So I don't think we've really ever been like mad at each other or like yelling at each other. That's great. But I think part of it's because we internalize, like in a good way. We're processing and trying to make changes and get better.
I think it was in 2015 you won the AVP Newcomer of the Year, and it's just always weird to me how if you play with somebody the entire season, why the team wouldn't be voted Newcomer of the Year. But was that a point of contention?
No, it really bothered me actually because I didn't think I deserved it. Especially, I felt like we should have both gotten it, or no one should have gotten it, because I obviously wouldn't have done well without her, and vice versa. So it was kind of disappointing, but I think she handled it well, and we handled it well. It wasn't, I mean, awards don't really make up who you are and don't make up your team. So that was really, yeah, not a super weird thing at all. But yeah, I was kind of disappointed in the AVP. I think they should have given it to us both.
Yeah. You grew up under the Tom Black system of process first, and then you go to the Olympic gym, and Karch is talking about process and stuff. And so here you are as this, aspiring beach duo and you're trying to qualify for Tokyo and you're trying to juggle finances and relationships and a marriage and jobs and all this stuff. So did Tom and Karch and their process first idea, is that what kind of helps get you through? Or is it just you wake up every day and you got things to do and you just don't even think about it?
Yeah, I think process is a huge part of it. And when I'm getting better, I'm really focused and I'm really mindful on like specific things and kind of like one focus at a time. I think as you go through different coaches too, it's hard to separate and figure out what you want to really get better at. Like a good example is today I went to practice and I was like, all right, I'm just going to get better at staying behind the ball because I have been working on some hitting things and I've trying to do this and that, and I actually got better at staying behind the ball. So just focusing on one thing at a time has really been helping me, and if I don't do that, I don't think that I make a whole lot of progress at practice. So I think that's huge for me to get better, and I have to remind myself that because it's easy to be really result-oriented and look at, wins and losses, but really that doesn't matter in the long term. So yeah, it's helped me a ton, and I always have to remind myself to do that. I do help coach at LMU. I'm John Mayer's assistant, so it's nice to be with those girls every day, and they kind of being able to coach in that atmosphere and having the process matter more definitely spilled over into my own game. Things like I forget about, I'll see them do, and I'll see them really work on the process, and I'm able to take that into my practice. So that's really cool, and I really love being a part of that too.
Wow! So you just kind of led me to my next section here. So you are coaching. You went from being a player to a coach, as a lot of people do. You went from a really, Tom Black is obviously a really high level coach, and like I said, being in Karch's gym for 8 weeks and stuff. And now you're working with John Mayer, who was the year you were voted Newcomer of the Year, he was voted AVP Most Valuable Player. What's the transition been like from player to coach? And it's even weirder because now you actually float between the two, right? You play and then coach and play and then coach. So what's that been like?
Yeah, I think probably the first year was the hardest because I had played with all the girls, and like Sarah was still there, Sarah Sponsel, and so I kind of had to talk with her and be like, all right, do you want me to coach you? Like, I can give you certain feedback, and she was really receptive and she took feedback really well. So I think that was probably the hardest year, but it's been, I love it. I love being a part of LMU. John's awesome. I've learned a lot from him. Still trying to get better, like being a coach, especially with, like this year, I'm trying to be better with my feedback. I know, especially like part of the process-oriented versus like result-oriented. So like if someone's passing, instead of saying good pass, I'm telling them good angle on your pass. So I've learned a lot from John, and I'm really trying to get good at being a good coach, and it definitely helps me be a better player. And when I go to practice, I'm not in coach mode. I'm not trying to coach Kelly. I'm just trying to kind of follow the example of the LMU girls and do what they're doing at our practice. So it's definitely super helpful in my own game.
Kelly coaches too, though, and maybe, I don't know if she coaches at a university, but she coaches at a beach club there, right?
Yeah, she coaches at a club.
Yeah. So having two coaches on the same side of the sand, that can be a little rough at times, but you guys seem to be working it out.
No, I think it helps us be smart in our own game, and we have a coach too, so it's helpful. We're there to listen to him and make changes regarding that. Having that third party person to help us really helps. What
were some of the things that you learned these first couple years of coaching that you would want to share with maybe a new coach or a new beach coach or something? What would be 3 or 4 things that you wish you had known going in that you've learned in these last few years?
Just as far as beach, I think a lot of beach coaches kind of just teach based on what they're taught or based on their opinion, and I think what like John Mayer and Tom Black do, and our new head coach Aaron, they base what they teach on science and studies and facts. So I think being a coach, it's important to teach simple things, but having a good background and knowing where it's coming from. It's not just this is what you think. I think that's huge. And then just teaching things in simple keys, kind of like GMS, gold medal squared. They make it really simple to understand as a player, and it also makes it really simple as a coach. And John does a really great job of being very focused on our drills. So we'll have like a practice laid out where we're just working on passing, and we're just giving most of our feedback on passing. And it's not really about like the wins or losses, or maybe it's not about your swing, but we're really giving feedback on just the pass. So having like really one focus drills is huge.
So you've had a lot of coaches in your career. Now, I mean, you're still young, but you've had high school, club, college, whatever. So tell me some of the things that you take from those coaches along the way. What were some of the lessons or some of the things that you learned? And it could be good or bad, but what were some of those things? Like, what did you learn most from Tom, or what did you learn most from John, or even your high school coach or a club coach or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I've said a lot of it, but just being really specific with feedback is helpful as a player for sure. And that's something I'm like really trying to get better at, especially in the moment, giving immediate feedback, not waiting to give it. Otherwise, kind of the play already happens. You kind of forget about it as a player. I mean, I've learned a ton. Who else? I mean, Tom taught me a lot about the mental game and incorporating that into coaching. I think it's important to debrief with the players. So before practice, letting them know what's going to happen at practice, what we're working on, and then meeting after every drill and talking about what we learned. When you talk about what you learned, I think you learn better, you retain it better, and it also gives good insight to your teammates. So it's really cool, the discussions we have with our LMU girls. And we talk a lot about the mental game, so they can learn from each other, and it helps us as coaches to know what goes on inside their head, because we're obviously not inside of their head, so we don't know what's going on entirely. So it's cool to hear them say what's going on. So yeah, I know Tom did that a lot of debriefs before practice, in the middle of practice, especially after matches. And John does a great job of that with our LMU team now.
When was the point in your career, I mean, going back to 10 or 11 years old till now, when was the point where you realized, hey, I'm good enough to play at maybe professionally or at a high level college? Like, when did you realize that?
I don't know. I think I've always had really good coaches who have given me confidence and helped me believe that. I don't know if I grew up like watching the AVP, but I didn't ever think like, oh, like I'm going to go do that. I think it just kind of happened, and I think Tom really gave me the confidence, and John to just to go for it and have fun, and they gave me the tools I needed, and especially mentally. I think that's something in the beach game that's huge and probably not taught enough. We had sports psychologists that would come work with us, and that was really helpful going into our first year on the AVP. And I think I remember in the finals of Cincinnati, it was our first final, we were super nervous, and I was able to take what I learned from, all those years of mental work with Tom, just as far as the breath and being in the moment, and that really helped relax me and not feel all the pressure that I was feeling at the moment. So yeah.
So you've talked a lot about the mental work, but you and Kelly and you and Tom and stuff. So and what you just described is are you talking about for example, relaxation techniques, or trying to just play one point, just worry about this point? What can you give me a couple examples of what you're talking about?
Yeah, both. I think for sure, just breathing and being in the moment, it's really easy to think about the next player, or even think about the next game, or what's going on tonight, or what's going to happen if we win this, or what's going to happen if we lose this, kind of thing. Breathing really helps me just stay focused and be in the present. And sometimes if I have a hard time getting my mind there, just kind of feeling, I can feel my toes or feel a body part, and it helps me really get back in the moment. Still working on perfecting those things. It's always a challenge.
So when you and Kelly are playing together, do you guys have to remind each other of those kind of things if somebody starts to fly off the radar a little bit, or what do you do?
For us, for me, I really like breathing, but I think for us as a team, when we see each other down, it's super important we start talking about the next play. It's not about, oh, I should have done this on my pass, or that was a terrible set. It's really forward, direct talk. It's like, all right, we're getting this next pass. Or for me, it's like, all right, I'm seeing the line on the serve. I like really specific things, but I think forward, direct talk really helps us, and that's part of being the present a little bit, talking about the next play a little, front-loading the next play.
There are so many young kids that are starting to discover sand. There's a lot of people that are playing it now, obviously, but there's a lot of young kids coming in. Part of them look at it as just an alternative to indoor. Part of them, if they don't make their indoor teams, or it's an option for them to still play, and still others are looking at it as a way to get a college scholarship as the sport continues to grow in the NCAA. So what advice would you give to these younger kids, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13s, and then maybe 14s to 16s, and then 16s, 18s? Would the advice be different, or what advice would you give them, being that you are a professional player and a professional beach coach?
I think for sure, play as much as possible, like in every tournament you can, just to get the experience. I don't know how early or if it's useful to like specialize for indoor or beach. I really enjoyed playing both, and I think they definitely complemented each other. So playing both as long as you can before having to make that choice if you have to. I know there are programs like LMU that you can do indoor and beach. So I think that's huge. It's fun to be a part of like a big team like indoor. But another thing, I think especially as you get older, it's really easy to compare yourself to others, and when others are having success, it's easy to be like, oh, I wish I was there. But for something I learned, and I wish I kind of knew earlier, is just really focusing on yourself and not comparing yourself to others. I think in this day with social media, it's really easy to want to have someone else's life. But I think not comparing yourself and just trying to be the best version of you that you can be, because your time will come.
Were you comparing yourself to like players, like peers, or you were
like peers? I think it's like, oh, they won a tournament, like we got to win a tournament now. Like instead of like kind of focus on the process, back to the process again. Like if I'm doing this over and over again, I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna like my time's gonna come. It's not about what other people are doing, or oh, they're training right now, I need to go train. I don't know. You can just dig yourself in a hole.
I've literally been trying to do this with you now for the last 2 or 3 years, so I really appreciate you taking some time. Where you're going or where you're headed, is there social media information that you can give out to these, to the coaches that are listening?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Betsi Flint. It's BETSIFLINT. Also on Twitter at Betsi Flint. So yeah, and I'd love to hear questions. If other people have questions, they can message me on those.
Okay. Well, I can't thank you enough. I appreciate your time. Like I said, I've been waiting to do this for 2 or 3 years, so I'm thankful that you finally gave in.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for all you're doing for volleyball and beach volleyball.